moon. It's really something that we have just gotten from the IEBC register. And you can see that Coast, therefore, from the sample, got 793 sample, and then was stratified further by by the individual counties, proportionate to size of those counties as per the register. I think what we will do to make life easier for you is we will also include the percentage for each particular region so that you can see what percentages we're talking about in terms of what 793 is out of 9,000 and what it represents within the voter register. Okay. What are we saying here? We're just saying simply that oftentimes we have different stakeholders, media included, and political pundits using the information that we give you today as poll results as a prediction. Listen, this is not a prediction of the final result. This is merely a snapshot of what the popularity ratings and the perceptions of people of Kenya are at this particular point in time. So I think it is important to know that any time you see a poll, unless it is specified as a predictive poll, which can only be done within perhaps 48, 24 hours to an election, it is merely a snapshot that is showing you what is happening at that particular point in time. So indeed, this particular poll is giving you the scenario as was last week, which is between 2nd and 7th July. So it ended on 7th July. So it's, I think, the most recent poll that exists right now. Most of the others that I've seen were actually some polls that were done in June, and you must take that in context, okay? So what did we want to do? As always, and this is something that has been asked by various stakeholders, is do you just bother and are you just keen on popularity ratings? Absolutely not. As Infotrak, we are constantly keen on understanding, first of all, what the state of the country is. What are the key issues that are affecting us? What direction is the country taking? And who is responsible, for instance, for the economic difficulties that we're facing? We do this to help stakeholders understand where they should be concentrating their efforts, what government should understand in terms of the pains, what is pinching Kenyans today. We also do it for Kenyans themselves to understand that perhaps if they're going through a specific hardship, a specific strain, they can get just a bit of comfort in knowing that they're not the only ones going through that strain. So if it is high cost of living that one is suffering from, it sometimes helps to know that you're not the only one who can't afford the price of milk or unga, who can't pay your rent, okay? So let me start off then by, the first question that we asked, which is, if you look at Kenya today, that is last week, what direction do you think the country is taking? Is it going in the right direction, wrong direction, neither right or wrong direction? And what you can see is an overwhelming majority, 3/4 of Kenyans, 75% of Kenyans right now actually believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction. And that is not something that should be ignored. People are generally, majority of Kenyans are generally not happy with the direction the country is taking. Indeed, we saw that it was above 70 in most of the sub-regions, pray for Lower Eastern, where it was even higher. So people in Lower Eastern, only 15% of people in Lower Eastern are satisfied or, somewhat lukewarm with the direction the country is taking. 85% of those in Lower Eastern feel that the country is headed in the wrong direction. But you can see that across the board, it is above 70. And our current, government, and indeed those who are trying to convince us that they want to manage the state of affairs of this country as the, chief executives, which is the president, should understand that we are currently not particularly happy with the direction the country is taking. Why? Why are people not happy with the direction the country is taking? Why are they saying that the country is headed in the wrong direction? Simple. 77% have just mentioned, as you can see there, high cost of living. That's the main thing. 11% mention poor governance and rampant corruption. 4% mention bad politics. And then there are other things that are mentioned like unemployment, poverty, poor infrastructure, increased insecurity and crime, and lack of cohesion in the country. But you can see that the overarching problem here is the economy and the high cost of living. Generally, people are living from hand to mouth and cannot even make ends meet. They cannot even afford their basic needs. And it behooves on our leadership and our government to really give us solutions as to how we will be able to make ends meet. For those people who are happy and say the country is headed in the right direction, majority of them, 54%, mention peace. And then there are 12% who mention good infrastructure. And of course, there are those who mentioned, 10% mentioned devolution, as you can see there. There are the other people in the country who feel that the cost of living is affordable at 8%. The government is working, education has improved, the country is actively fighting corruption. My candidate is in power, was mentioned by 2%, and healthcare has improved. But this lot, as you can see there, the people who are happy with the direction the country is taking only constitute 12% of the nation right now, or at least 12% of registered voters. What are the key issues of concern? And who's responsible for the economic problems that Kenyans are facing? This question we coined about, going about 10 years ago, just after the 2007 election, MAD election, where we felt it was necessary for leadership and stakeholders to understand what pinch the country is feeling. So as Infotrak, we started concentrating more on key issues and asking the electorate what it is they wanted government and people responsible to deal with. So what are the key issues? The top 4 key issues that Kenyans feel need to be addressed as a matter of priority, and indeed should be addressed in most of our campaign rallies, in most of campaign agenda setting, in most of the manifestos, are as follows. The first thing Kenyans want to understand from those endearing themselves to us and asking us for our votes is the high cost of living. What are you going to do as a presidential candidate, as a gubernatorial candidate, as an MP candidate, MCA, women rep, to address the high cost of living that is right now plaguing Kenyans? And 64% of Kenyans say that is a key issue for you to address. The second thing that Kenyans want to address at 46% is the issue of roads, transport, and infrastructure. They want to know what you're going to do to ensure that the infrastructural development in various areas of the country, including especially those that affect them, are dealt with as a matter of priority. And we need to understand how you're going to do that without burdening us with increased taxes. The third thing that Kenyans want the presidential campaigns and rallies to deal with and focus on, as opposed to focusing on side issues, is the issue of unemployment in a very serious manner. And to tell us what solutions they're going to give Kenyans for those people who are currently underemployed, those people who lost jobs during COVID, and the many, many youth that are coming out of our universities and colleges that cannot find gainful employment. We want to understand from our political class what it is that they're going to do to address this issue. And shockingly, in the 21st century, for a country that purports to be a developing country, the fourth most critical issue to be addressed right now is access to clean water. Even in Nairobi today, it is a key issue. So as our politicians go around talking and promising all sorts of things, one of the basic necessities that Kenyans need and should have as a right which is access to clean water, is something that needs to be addressed. Can they kindly tell us what it is that they're going to do to ensure that we're not talking about access to clean water in the 21st century? It is actually preposterous. Then we have other issues that need to be addressed, which are also a matter of priority. 23% talk about access to healthcare, 15% mentioned corruption, 12% mentioned insecurity and crime. That was also mentioned by another 12% mentioned quality of education, and 12% mentioned the cost of doing business. But there were many other things that were mentioned: poverty reduction, empowerment of youth and women, dealing with bad politics, the politics of insulting and going below the belt when people cannot even afford to have clean water. And the cost of living is such that people are battling with even just getting affordable housing. So really, I think what Kenyans are saying here when they talk about these issues, and they don't talk about dynamic, political campaigns, they're really just saying, please focus on the key issues and tell us how you're going to address these key issues. Who is responsible for the economic difficulties that Kenyans are facing? There are people who have boldly said that corruption is not an issue in Kenya. It's ridiculous. Because 49% of Kenyans and another 29% of Kenyans mentioned that the high cost of living, the economic difficulties they are facing, the unemployment issues that plague our country today are because of one, poor governance at 49%, and two, corruption at 28%. So there's no way that those endearing and asking and begging and pleading and wooing us for our votes today can stand up and say that corruption is not an issue. They must tell us how they're going to deal with corruption. They must tell us how they're going to structure their governments, if they're given the opportunity to come in, such that they're able to deal with all those issues that plague our economy. So now we move into voting and the general elections of 2022, August. What we see, like we've seen in most of our elections, Kenya's never had a problem with high intention to vote. Indeed, our voter turnout in the last election was 80%. And it was indeed even high in the 2013 and the 2007 election. So it shouldn't surprise us that as we speak, an overall of 93% say of registered voters are saying that they indeed intend to vote. That may not necessarily mirror what will happen on that day, because things tend to happen. You can fall sick. You may go in and find that it's too much for you to bear. You may have to abruptly travel. So those are the things that may force someone not to, or make someone not to vote. And therefore, what we do know from these numbers, whilst they're saying 93, what it is telling us is that all those people who registered to vote really want to vote. What is the message, therefore, for IEBC and all those organs that are meant to help us have credible elections, is to ensure that we facilitate efficient voting and we inspire confidence in the fact that all the systems will be ready for us to vote on August 9th. If we now focus on the presidential popularity, what we see is that currently we have, according to IEBC latest gazetted register, 22.1 registered voters. And these registered voters are, split as follows. We have the highest percentage of registered voters in mountain region at 21% with 4.7. We have, that is followed by Nyanza with 14% of registered voters at 3.1 million voters. We then have 13% of voters in North Rift, which translates to 2.8 million voters. We have 11% of voters in Nairobi, that translates to 2.4 million voters. And then we also have 9% of voters at the coast, which is 2 million. We have 8% in Lower Eastern, which is 1.7 million. Sorry, I forgot to mention that we have 12% of our, voters in Western, which is 2.6. And we also have Northern Kenya, which has 1.1 million voters at 5%, and 8% of our voters are in Lower Eastern, which translates to 1.7 million voters. The voter turnout in the last elections overall, as I mentioned, was close to 80%. It was actually 78%. And what we see in terms of general popularity is that we have Raila right now at 43%. He has not, gained that much. He's gained 1% from the last time we did the study in June. And Ruto has gone down 1% from 38 to 37. Our undecided is currently at 16%. And we also have the George Wajakoya having, a popularity rating of 4%. David Wahiga is at 0.1% popularity as we speak. So overall, currently we have Raila with the 43%, which generally translates to about 9.4 million votes. Now he was at 9.3 in May, and we have Ruto at 37%, and that translates currently at 8.1%. He's lost about 300,000 votes because in May or end of May, which was really like June, he had 8.4 million votes. The undecided is currently at about 3.6 million from the 4.4 million that it was before. So generally, if Ruto has lost 1% and Raila has gained 1%, which is generally the same, and the undecided has gone down to 16%, then we can say that the net gains that have been made right now could essentially have gone to George Wajakoya. Let me very quickly take you through the regions one by one. If we look at the coast, the total number of registered voters at the coast is about 2 million. The highest number of those registered voters is in Mombasa, which is about 641, followed by Kilifi, about 588. The lowest number of registered voters is in Lamu, which is about 81,000 votes. And essentially, what we have done is we've shown you what the popularity was for the presidential candidates in June, and then made a comparison with July. We see, and I will quickly just take you through that Mombasa is now panning out more like a battleground from what we can see. We can see, that it was at 45% popularity for Raila in June. Ruto was at 33. Right now, Raila has only gained 1%. Ruto has lost, and is at 27 from 33. And then we see that Wajakoya has come in and has 7% popularity at the coast. Essentially, what we see as the changes is that, there are battlegrounds for us as we look at it right now. Is Mombasa is panning out as a battleground. Tana River, which has Raila at 40 and Ruto at 43, is also panning out as a battleground. But there are interesting changes in Lamu and Kwale. When we did the study in June, Kwale was at 42% for Raila. He's now moved to 51%. Ruto was at 35. He's now gone down to 25. We also see in Lamu a complete flip. In June, Ruto was at 43% popularity. Raila was at 34. Right now in Lamu, Raila is at 46 and Ruto is at 29. So the gains and losses are such that Raila has gained a little bit, by gaining in Kilifi, in Kwale, and he's also gained Lamu. But Mombasa, which is the vote-rich county, is still playing out as a battleground. If we look at northern Kenya, then the changes are such that we see that overall Raila is at 52 right now, down from 54. Ruto is also down 1% from 30 to 29 to 30, up 1% from 29 to 30. And then we see that the undecided has moved from 18 to 15%, and George Wajakoya has gained 4%. Essentially, the battlegrounds right now in northern Kenya are Marsabit and Isiolo. And those changes that are significant for us to see is Marsabit. Marsabit was, the last time we looked at it, Marsabit was more for Raila at 51%. He's lost 10% and is now neck and neck with Ruto. And then we also see that in Turkana, whilst Raila was at 42% in June, he's currently at 57%, he's gained significantly. And we also see that in Isiolo, whilst Ruto was at 50%, he has lost about 10% and is now at 41%. So those are the significant changes there. If we look at Lower Eastern, I think the general thing we can say about Lower Eastern is this. It is a Raila stronghold. It has about 1.7 million voters. When we did the study in June, Kalonzo was still out of Azimio and was going to run as a presidential candidate under Wiper. Now he has come back to the fold, and what we see that the return of Kalonzo has provided a 13% gain to the Raila Karua presidential ticket, and therefore has gained them 208,000 votes. So what does that then translate to? Whilst in June, Raila was at 41 and Ruto was at 32. Right now, Raila is at 54, Ruto is at 25. The undecided is still significant at 17%. So apart from the 208,000 votes that Ruto seemed to have brought back to the fold, if he wants to really make it a stronghold, he would still need to get the 17% on board. Mount Kenya is definitely a route of stronghold. Nothing has changed much from that. What has changed really is that from June to now, Ruto has gained 3% in the mountain, and Raila has actually lost 3%. Ruto's gains are in Embu, and what we see is that in June, Raila was at 31 in Embu and Ruto was at 51 in Embu. Right now, Raila is dropped by half to 16% in Embu, and Ruto has gained from 51 to 63%. Ruto has also gained in Laikipia. In June, Ruto was at 47 in Laikipia, Raila was at 36. What we see now is that Ruto is at 54 in Laikipia and Raila has dropped to 24 from 36. We also see in Murang'a changes, whereas Ruto was at 49 in Murang'a in June, he's now at 55. Raila has dropped by 3%, he was at 27, he's currently at 24. The key areas that are giving Raila support in the mountain right now, in terms of sheer percentages, is Meru, where he has 32%. He had 30 in June. Tharaka Nithi, where he has gained from 20 to 28%. So those areas are giving him some sort of significant, support. And then we also see some support, significant support in Kiambu, where he has approximately 28%. But in a nutshell, this is an indisputable Ruto stronghold. If we look at South Rift, then interesting dynamics as well. About 1.7 million registered voters. more or less the same. Highest votes are in Kajiado and Kericho, and then Narok and Bomet also have more or less the same number of votes. And overall of 60% of voters said they would vote for Ruto in June. Currently, 54% say they would vote for Ruto in South Rift. And Raila has improved, so he's gained from 24% to 30%. What are the changes that Raila has gained in Narok? He had 42% support in Narok. He currently has 48%. You guys are still there and you can hear me. So what was I saying? I was talking about South Rift, and I've told you about Narok, where Raila is now leading slightly, he has a 5% lead. It has flipped, the popularity there, so it's now having an advantage. But what is interesting is that in June, Ruto was very popular, significantly more popular than Raila, with 45%. Raila was at 32%. That has completely flipped now in Kajiado. So Raila is now close to 50% in Kajiado, and Ruto has dropped to 32%. The Undecided is currently at 17%. Wajakoya has come in and has 6%. So Ruto, the battlegrounds here are Narok. Raila has gained in Narok and Kajiado, and Ruto is strong in Bomet and Kericho. We're about to finish. We have North Rift. In North Rift, we have about 2.8 million voters. I share the screen. The screen is on. Can you see the screen, guys?
No.
No.
Oh, but were you seeing it before?
Yes.
Okay, let me share. Sorry about that. I think we had a connection problem. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Can you? Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so if we look at North Rift, I just mentioned that we have, it's vote rich, 2.8 million voters approximately. And what we see overall is that Ruto was at 60% before, he's currently at 58%. Raila was at 20, he's gained 4, so he's at 24%. Wajakoya has come in and has 3%. The Undecided has moved from 19 to 14%. What do we see that would be of key, interest? First of all, indisputed Ruto stronghold, as you can see. He has now gained West Pokot. Indeed, what we saw last time is that he had 48 in West Pokot. We had touted it as a battleground county, but with 58% now, it is definitely a Ruto county. Where we do see battlegrounds still are Samburu, if you can see there, with 44 for Raila and 41 for Ruto, and Nakuru, where Ruto is leading at 48, but we have 17% currently who are undecided. If we add that 17% to 30, which is Odinga's, then we'd have 37%. And then we have we have Wajakoya at 5% currently. In Western, interesting dynamics. We have about, again, 2.6 million voters. The highest percentage of voters or number is in Kakamega, which is about 844, followed by Bungoma with about 646,000 voters. And what is critical here is to see from the overall figures, we see that Whilst Raila was at 48% in June, Ruto was at 28%. We see now that Raila has dropped to 46%, Ruto has dropped to 25%, Wajakoya has come in and has 3%, but the undecided in Western is perhaps the highest at 26%. That, for me, makes Western a battleground region. We have 3 battleground counties in Western. The first one is Trans Nzoia, where we have very high undecided of 25%, whilst Raila is leading at 40% and Ruto has 32%. The second battleground is Bungoma, where they're neck to neck, with Raila at 35%, Ruto at 36%, and we have the undecided at 20%. And then we also have Vihiga, which has changed. Somebody needs to mute their mic kindly.
Yeah, because your time.
Kindly
Actually,
mute your mic, Wycliffe.
yeah.
Can you mute
Hiyo
Wycliffe's mic?
Raila alikuwa 42,
For me
hilo
to
nilifanya.
continue.
Alikuwa 42, Ruto alikuwa 38. Saa hii ni 43, Ruto amedrop na 1. So
Wycliffe, we are waiting for you to mute your mic.
niongelesha.
Has it been muted? Okay, thank you. Sorry, guys, my apologies. So what we see is, let me just recap. We have Trans Nzoia, which you can see there, 40-32, very high undecided of 25. We have Vihiga, where in June, Raila was at 42, he's dropped to, 49, he's dropped to 42. Ruto has moved from 29 to 33, and we have a high undecided of 22. Then we also have Bungoma, where they're running neck on neck. Whilst Ruto was leading in Bungoma in June to, at 43, he's dropped to 36, but Raila is also dropped 1% to 35. And the undecided has increased from 21 to 26%. So really that makes it pan out as, a battleground. And then we see Nyanza, really is Raila's stronghold. What is the key issue of significance here is that perhaps Siaya has dropped by 10% from 90 to 81, but generally we see gains in all other counties. A total of 3.1 million votes currently in Nyanza. And then, of course, in Nairobi, we have, 2.4 million votes. And there we see that Raila is more or less the same at 49 against 50, Ruto more or less the same. The undecided was at 18% with the refuse to answer, and then we had others at 2%. What is significant here is that George Wajakoya has gained 5%. David Wahiga is insignificant at 0.3%. Our undecided has reduced by 3% to 15%. What do we see? In a nutshell, we see that not much changes for in popularity for Ruto and Raila. Like I said, Ruto has lost 1% in our survey, Raila has gained 1%, but our undecided has reduced from 20, I believe, to 16%, and that change has actually gone to, we could assume, to George Wajakoya. So if we focus just on the George Wajakoya factor and his entrance with some, some percentage that one can speak of, then where is he getting most of his percentage? We can see that he gets his percentage from Nairobi with 6. He has taken 3% in Western. He has taken 3% of Nyanza. He's taking 3% in North Rift. He's taking 5% in South Rift. George Wajakoya commands 4% in Mount Kenya region. George Wajakoya has 3% in Lower Eastern. He has 4% in Northern region, and George Wajakoya has 5% at the coast. If you consolidate all those numbers, he then gets an overall of 4% of total voter, votes. David Wahiga has mentions in terms of popularity, 0.4 at the coast, 0.1 in Lower Eastern, 0.2 in Mount Kenya. He does not get anything in South Rift. He has 0.1% in North Rift, 0.1 in Nyanza, 0.1% in Western, and 0.3% in Nairobi, therefore giving him an overall of 0.1%. Our undecided, look at it. It is highest in Western at 26%. We then have followed by Coast with 18% undecided or refused to answer. Then we have Lower Eastern at 17%, 15% of voters in Northern, and 15% in Nairobi, respectively, are undecided. We then have 16% undecided in Mountain Region, and we have 11% undecided in South Rift, 14% undecided in North Rift. The lowest undecided this time round is in Nyanza, where we have 12%. But of significant note is the high undecided in Western and at the coast, thus then giving those two regions the question, are they turning out as battlegrounds? What are the changes? Who's gained, who's lost? I think I've mentioned this, so I'll not belabor on it too much. We see that, Raila has gained 3% in Northern Kenya. Ruto has lost he's not gained anything at the coast. Ruto lost 2%. Raila gained 3% in Northern Kenya. Ruto lost 2%. Raila gained the 13% with Kalonzo's return in Lower Eastern. Ruto lost 7%. In the Mountain Region, Raila lost 3%. Ruto gained 3%. In South Rift, Raila gained 5%, Ruto lost 5%. In North Rift, Raila gained 4%, Ruto gained 2%. In Nyanza, Raila gained nothing, Ruto lost 1%. In Western, Raila lost 2%, Ruto lost 3%. In Nairobi, Raila lost 1%, Ruto lost nothing. Therefore, overall, Raila has gained 1% and Ruto has gained Raila has gained 1% and Ruto has lost 1%, really making the figures not, showing much change. This undecided, where is it? Who is it? Who is panning out to be the 16%? We see that the undecided is still high if we now look at it consolidated. If we look at the numbers, remember the other one was just showing it to you against the overall. What we now take is the absolute numbers of the undecided in each one of those regions. I want us to be clear that what has happened here, let me take you back so that we are together. You see this undecided in Mountain Region. It is 16% of voters in Mountain Region. However, if you remember, Mountain Region is the most vote rich. So if you take the 16% and translate it to absolute numbers, and take 18% of the coast and translate it to absolute numbers and all the others, then it then translates to this that adds up to 100. So what we then see is that if you just take the undecided as a basket, then of all the undecided, 22% of the undecided is still residing in the Mountain Region. If you just look at all the votes, whereas if you look at Mountain Region on its own, we see that it is 16%. I hope we're clear on that. And then we see that, of all that, then North Rift and Western have the second highest undecided, followed by Coast and Nairobi. And then we have the most insignificant undecided we can see is in Northern. Indeed, even Nyanza, which was low, if you translate it into absolute numbers, because it's become quite vote rich, is 11%. So if we look at overall changes, we see that Coast undecided has gone down by 1%. We also see that Mount Kenya has gone down from 22 to 21. North Rift has also gone down. South Rift has gone up. Nyanza has gone up by 3%. And we also see Western has gone down from 14 to 12, and we see Nairobi has also gone down. The highest percentage of undecided, if we just look at the age bracket, is not really your young voter of 18 to 26. It's a person who really is starting their life, their family, they're getting married, they're leaving university, they're getting jobs, they're leaving college. These are the people who are feeling the pinch of the economy, and you therefore will not be surprised that that group, 27 to 35, has moved from 32% of that age cohort to 38% with a 6% gain. In the last poll, we saw that 62% of the undecided were female. That has changed. Now we see that it is the flip. It has reduced to 47% of females being undecided, perhaps because females have made up their minds and are now, voting more for whoever they're inclined to. Indeed, if it was to be assumed that all females who are undecided, who have now reduced by 15%, had moved their support to, say, for instance, Martha Karua, then would have seen a significant jump. So what this just reinforces is that just because we have a female candidate sometimes does not necessarily mean that we as females will vote for that candidate. Sometimes we're looking for a little bit more, and this has been proven not just here, but globally. What we now see with the gender factor, however, is that 53% of males are the ones who are now undecided. In that undecided basket, if we look at it by gender, of all those people who are undecided, only 47% are female and 53% are male. Sorry. Why have I stopped sharing? Can you come and help me? I have stopped sharing. Sorry, guys. We're about to finish. So now it is just to show you the I believe we're here. Political popularity, alafu tutamaliza. So if we look at political parties, we have UDA at 33% popularity, ODM at 31%, Jubilee at 4%, Roots Party has come in at 2%, is as popular as Wiper Democratic Party at 2%. All the others combined are at 4%. And then we have the ones who didn't want to disclose at 6%, and those who said none at 18%. There's a new alliance, which then, consolidates some of the other parties and Jubilee, so that we're clear and people are saying, oh, but it's not tallying. Remember that Azimio has, I don't know how many member parties, is currently at 43. So it's leading in terms of popular alliance, and Kenya Kwanza is at 38. What is interesting, therefore, is that it's very close to the popularity that we see of the various presidential. So Raila has the 43% that Azimio also has, and then Kenya Kwanza has 38 and Ruto is at 37. That brings me to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, I can answer them very quickly now, because I then have to move on to our official press conference. Thanks, guys. Any questions? Can I assume there are no questions from the guys on? Right, I can presume that silence is satisfaction and consent. And I will now thank you for having joined us for this press conference. My colleagues will be sharing with you this particular presentation in the next few minutes, in about 30 minutes, just when we finish with your colleagues who are here to do their recording live. And then, feel free, as always, to reach out to us so that we can give clarifications where necessary. Asanteni sana, have a good day. I think someone is saying, can we get population per region for your sample? Of course, because it was there, it is there. All that information is there. You will see it in the report. But it will be voter population. I'm not too sure whether our statisticians and I also put adult population so that you could see adult population as well. But you will see the voter register, which is right now our template, what we're using as our universe. Okay? I presume that's it. Thank you very much. Can we switch off? Okay. Thanks, guys. If there's anything else, feel free to get in touch with me. Let me put my email address here so that everybody has it. infotrakresearch.com. Then you can also get from my colleague, john.care, john.dunde at please feel free to get in touch with us, and we will answer whatever it is or give you clarifications where necessary. Asante sana.